and welcome back to the Thecypershow. Once again, I am your host, Ngarambe Rita, and today, as always, I have a credible guest for you. He is an amazing leader within the church, and he has a story to tell, not just any story that we get used to, but a story that is personal and individualistic in a sense that I hope it motivates you, it changes your life in the best way possible. And before I say too much, welcome, Pastor Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Those were some very kind words. I feel like I have to live up to that phrase now.
No, it's you we're talking about. I didn't even get to say so much of it. I read through your bio, which is amazing, impressive, by the way. And right now I'm sitting in the presence. I'm like, what do I ask? What kind of questions would I wish to know? Because I am at the feet of an elder who's like, I want to learn a lot. So thank you so much for making time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How was your day today?
The sun was out, it's getting warmer, so I can't complain too much.
Amazing. Yeah. So I read in your bio that you were raised in a church, and were your parents Christians? Like, were they so engaged in the church?
You know what? In Caribbean culture, faith is spirituality, I should say, is just a huge part of our culture.
Right.
So I did grow up going to church per se. On and off, here and there. And it was definitely a huge part of my upbringing.
Would you say you were like one of those stubborn young kids who only go to church because the parents said so? If not, you get a whooping or no?
You know what? I loved church growing up. I would say probably, around 7th or 8th, junior high is when that started to change.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to go to church anymore. Those teenage years started creeping up. It was the 90s, the rise of hip-hop and,
oh my God.
and R&B, you know what I mean, and BET and all these things. And I started gravitating more towards what culture was telling me was cool rather than what church was telling me was right.
Right, yeah. Are you one of those teenagers who turned into made a rap song somewhere?
I tried. I tried. I mean, I didn't make a rap song, but I think in the 90s, everybody was trying to be a rapper.
True.
It was the cool thing to to do. After school, at bus stops, everybody was rapping.
Did you make beats? Those beat math?
Oh, yeah. Beatboxing, everything was an instrument. Everything. The glass wall on a bus stop, your desk, the kitchen cafeteria, everything was an instrument.
Well, do you still make those? Can I call you out and be like, make a little bit? No?
Man, my kids would tell me to stop right now.
Like, Dad, no.
She would shut it down real quick.
How many children do you have, by the way?
I have 3 incredible, greatest humans on the planet children.
Amazing.
That's how I introduce them.
Wow.
But 3, 8, 6, and 5 years old.
Amazing. How is it being a dad? Does it feel like they're still young now, like almost where you used to be a long time ago? How does it feel like?
Oh, man, being a dad is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me.
Oh, wow.
My kids, I find there are very few things that make me feel vulnerable with my kids. I'm convinced they have impacted my life much more than I could ever impact theirs. It's a whole different arena of development. Love that you didn't know you had gets unlocked. And, it's like wearing, I've heard it said before, but it's like wearing your heart on the outside of your chest when it comes to your kids. I feel like that's the best way to describe it.
Amazing. Right now I'm thinking, when you said how vulnerable that have made you, were you like that when growing up, where you had that masculine thing where it's even when you go to church, you talk to God easily, but not too deep or emotional?
You know what? I think I've always had a certain comfort level with vulnerability, whether it's sharing my story or some of my most intimate moments. I wouldn't necessarily see those as being vulnerable. There's a comfort zone within that vulnerability for me, speaking in front of people, whatever the case is. But my kids, emotionally, they can do something, and I'm ready to fireworks coming out of my eyes and tears coming down. They get me.
Wow, that's amazing. So you said up until what age did you stop going to church? Started kind of stepping backwards?
You know what, I'd say high school, probably about 14 years of age, is when a whole bunch of trouble really, really began to take off. And that's when I wasn't living at home anymore. I, got kicked out of the house, violence, started dropping out of school and things along those nature. But, church kind of went on the back burner.
Right.
At that point, for sure.
So when you talk about violence, was it like that regular kids fighting at school, or was it like legit actual violence where you had to fight for no reason?
You know what? It was definitely, again, like I look at the era of the 90s and, what music was. I was born in the 80s, but what music was saying was cool. There was definitely a gang mentality that I began to take on, and I grew up in a pretty decent home, but I found myself in different neighborhoods in the city, and trying to emulate a life that really I had no business, I had no excuse trying to live. My parents are educated. I lived in a detached house, but you would find me in some of the marginalized areas of our community, and I'd be fighting. Because somebody was from a different neighborhood. I'd be fighting because somebody looked at me the wrong way.
Wow.
I'd be fighting over money, robbing people. The list sort of goes on. And I just found the older and older I got, that just escalated. And what started off with just as a fight at school became a fight at a party, and it just escalated, became fights with weapons, and became funerals and all these different things, and people dying, people getting shot, and just on every single level, it just escalated as time went on.
Wow. When you talk about those moments and the things that you were doing, you weren't per se proud of right now as the person you have grown to become, what kind of, is there a specific moment, a particular moment where you kind of picture it and you kind of remember and be like, wow, Andrew, did you really do that?
Yeah. You know what? Despite that mentality that I was, projecting and trying to live up to, I like to believe at my core I cared about people. I cared about my friends deeply. I say most of the fights I ever got in really weren't about me. I was fighting somebody else's battle. I was trying to protect somebody else. I was really trying, you know what I mean? Those were majority of the fights I got into. But I remember there was a moment that was very, I think to this day still marks me, where I got in a physical altercation with my mother. It kind of came out of nowhere, fighting over something like a cell phone or being up at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. I just moved back in, whatever the case is. And getting physical with my mother, I think I was actually 15 years old at the time. And I remember looking in her eyes and realizing I never wanted a woman to ever look at me or be afraid of me. And I realized something was wrong here. How did I get here? How did I get to this point? Something's got to change.
Wow. How did, I don't know, I'm trying to comprehend it, even how you visualize, it's almost like you see it once again, even when you think about it. It's a moment you never wish to go back to. But about what age did you decide to change your life? What happened?
Ooh, man. You know what? It was definitely a gradual process. I think because I didn't grow up in a certain environment, I always knew that there was more to life. You know what I mean? My sisters, were graduating law school, all the rest of the, different things. And my dad, PhD, Ivy League school. So I always knew that there was more to life than, trying to hustle or sell drugs or getting in fights or whatever the case is. I always wanted more and felt like there was more for me. So despite me chasing, money, girls, a reputation, respect, despite me chasing those things, they never really satisfied, and there was always a sense of not being content. And I think just gradually as things began to unfold, you find yourself a year behind in school, 2 years behind in school, not going to school, getting expelled from schools, getting kicked out at home, wearing out your welcome in friends' homes in different environments, sleeping on the street different times. And I think as it escalated, the major point would be, I remember a friend of mine ended up dying. And this was a guy who, by all accounts, was a good guy. He was an incredible basketball player, had so much potential, was going down in the States and playing sports. And, we were thinking he would go to the league. He was going to go to the NBA one day and, just dreams as teenagers. And I remember he ended up dying in a car accident, out of all things. Wow. And I remember going to the funeral and it hit me. It's like nobody is invincible. Here was a guy who was doing all the right things and he died. And I remember just this fear of death. I began to look at my life in different circumstances and different times where I was in some incredibly dangerous situations. And for the first time in my life, I really began to feel afraid, where I couldn't see 21. I couldn't see 22. I couldn't see 30. I couldn't see having a family one day. I didn't know if I was going to make it to 18 or 19 years of age. And, I had some great people in my life, different people in the church, things like that, who had stayed consistent in reaching out to me. My mother,
what would you say was, sorry not to interrupt, but what would you say was the margin line? Like when you see someone who's doing everything right, but they still die, like you don't get to live the life you're working for, you don't get to live the dreams and the potential that other people see for you and you see for yourself. What's the thing that separates you from seeing, oh, I gotta give up on life anyways, what would do this for? Like, he is nice, I'm doing the terrible things, but here I am, I'm still alive. But he did everything right and he died. So what made you kind of have this other positive perspective of the situation?
I think you kind of summed it up in a nutshell. Here was a guy who wasn't doing the things I was doing, and he still died. He's still in a moment, life was gone, his mom crying, friends crying, this, that, and the other. And here I was, doing these things, surrounded by funerals, people dying. And I realized this is my trajectory and I'm doing bad things. Like, this is where I'm headed. This is where I'm going.
So it kind of hindered you into the right direction. Yeah. Wow. So how did you end up at church? Like, yes, life has turned you, you've learned from the situations around you and the community around you, but how do you end up at the doorsteps of a church?
Yeah. 2004, New Year's Eve, during this process of wanting to change, I got drunk out of my mind. And I remember waking up the next morning and just like feeling, what is the point of living? And I remember I had some key conversations and an opportunity came up for me to go to almost like a detention center, boot camp type program in upstate New York. And, I decided to voluntarily go. There was some court order stuff as well, but I decided to voluntarily go. And when I went there, I was now in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. I was in, forest country as a city boy. I was out of my element. I was confronted really quickly. I thought I was a gangster in Toronto, living in the suburbs with my air conditioning, and then I meet kids from Harlem, New York City, or, people who have been to Rikers, all these different places. And, I realized, I'm really,
Listen.
let me just calm down. I'm not a gangster. And I was also one of the youngest people in the program at that point in time. It was 16 to 21. I was 16. But I remember being in a room by myself. There was nobody preaching a message or anything. And I remember just crying out to God, look, God, if you could do something with my life. My way of doing it is not working. It's not working out.
Wow.
This is where I am. This is what has happened. I'm failing by every measurable standard in this thing called life. And I'm pretty sure I, cursed a few times in that prayer as well. And, it's being authentic, talking to God. But, I was like, God, if you could do something with my life, here it is. Wow. I think that was the point where my trajectory, my life really began to spin, and God began to do a work in my heart and in my life, and and the rest is history.
Wow. But when you say, like, you were 16 at this time, you were in the room alone praying. When you stepped out, people would think that your life drastically changed the way you think. Maybe you went out and you weren't cursing anymore or you weren't fighting. How does it work? Like, does it take a week and then you start to see that the decision making is changing? Or how does it feel like?
I think on the inside, immediately, I feel like my heart softened. No longer was there this need to put on this image, to play this role, to try and be this, image that I had tried for so long to project. And I think there was now this openness and this willingness to, God, what do you want for me? Okay, let me try it this way. Let me try reading my Bible, learning the lessons, learning the stories. And, I began to pray every single morning. Meditation, all these different things. I began to listen, follow the rules, began to do my schoolwork.
Wow.
And, that it was just, that just started the process, but then it was working it out afterwards. And small changes, character changes.
Would you say something, when you change your life in that way and you know yourself that you've measured yourself to a higher standard now, so you have given up certain things, of course. How about friends and family? Like, is there a different view that they start seeing you in? Yeah,
I think with friends and family as well, that was a process of healing, heart-to-hearts of apologizing for years and years, and then also things that I guess in our family didn't necessarily go right, that my parents were able to take responsibility for and really just apologize. And I think that kind of helped change their perspective, change their outlook. In regards to friends, it took a while, but eventually when I ended up moving back to Toronto, people could see, oh, there's something different about this guy. The way he talks, look at what he's doing with his life, and the list goes on.
Right.
But it became clear that I was no longer living the same way. I was no longer going to the same parties. I was no longer, engaging in a certain lifestyle. And
so as young as that, though, when you, yes, you have changed, the people around you, the young people around you in your life are not able to actually see where you're headed. Would you say you felt the pressure of friends, like trying to hold on to certain friendship that seemed legit or seemed solid? Yeah. Like, was that kind of a challenge?
Well, you know what? My context was I was sent to a program in New York. So I was already separated at this point from my environment in Toronto, friends. I wasn't allowed to talk to them, call them, any of that until after a year when I went home for a visit. I was allowed a week visit. That was the first time I saw people in a year. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like this perfect...
Kind of made it easier.
Yeah, definitely made it easier to step away and focus on me.
Wow.
Without the pressure of, I guess, the societal or peer pressures.
Right. You did mention apologies and the moment with your mom. Did you ever get to sit down and talk about it with her?
Oh, yeah.
Did she express how she felt, or even the proud moment when you're apologizing to her? Yeah, definitely. We've had lots of incredible conversations over the years, and I would say to this day she's probably the pillar in my life in a lot of ways, the most consistent person throughout the years, and our relationship now today is incredible. Wow, amazing. It's like a proud son. Yeah. It's like amazing. So what would you say, the young people, when you look at the generations you are in, what do you think were the possibilities or the ways that could have changed or impacted the young people? You did mention the music culture that affected a lot. What other factors do you think contributed to the way you carried yourself as young people, your generation, that you think are still happening up to now?
Yeah, you know what? I think... there's so many factors there. We can go generations back. We can, in terms of, especially within Black culture, the family dynamic, and just some of the socioeconomic opportunities and things that are placed on people. But I think one of the biggest things I see lacking in young people is really a sense of identity, of who they are, of who they're meant to be, why they're on this earth. And I've always found when people don't have a strong sense of identity, they become susceptible to anyone and everything telling them who they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to dress, how they're supposed to think. And especially when, certain values aren't coming from home. I've just found there's a generation of young people from certain circumstances that are just susceptible. They're looking to all the wrong places to tell them how to live their life.
Do you think it's possible for a young person? You mentioned you did have like a good family, like a standard family, everything. Like you can't say you had a drunken father or a mother who was this way, but you had a pretty good environment, you would say. Yet you still turned this other way. You had a troubled childhood. Would you say that it's possible for a young person who doesn't have those factors around them, the positive factors, to be able to turn their lives around?
I mean, it's definitely possible. I think majority of people tend to be a product of their environment. It's very rare that you will see somebody be in the middle of, a cesspool or, just a bad context. It's very rare that you'll see someone come out and they're, getting a 90% average in school and the rest, is going on and, mom is a drug addict or it's very rare. It happens. But I think majority of young people tend to be a product of their environment.
So there is that inevitable factor. But what do you, how is it that, let's say, we're here, you've grown, you've had all these experiences in your life, of course. How do you advise a young person? We're telling them to find their authentic self, to be themselves, despite of what the media is telling them, despite of their own environment that is affecting them. How is it possible to be able to create this something new, this uniqueness? Like how you have been able to grow up and shape your life in a certain way. Like how do we tell these young people to, here it is something impossible, like something imaginary that you have to compare yourself to be?
Yeah.
Like how do we embrace that? How do we teach the young people to do that?
You know what? I think on the most, and again, there's so many complex factors when it comes to really seeing someone change their life. But I think, to young people who find themselves in a situation where they want more, where they desire more, where they're unhappy with their life and they want change, I think one of the key things that they need is to find good people. Find people who are where you want to be, who are living the life that you want to live, and gravitate towards those. I think so often people, especially young people who are so impressionable, I think youth are the greatest people group on the planet. I love them. But I just find so often young people, when you sit and you talk to them, they truly do desire something different, especially those coming from rough backgrounds. But it is difficult when, I met a kid who was 13 years old, getting all kinds of trouble. And then when you heard his story, dad's in jail, uncle's in jail, mom sells drugs, it made sense. You understood why he was. And it wasn't until someone like me comes along or other people coming in his life and like, okay, now you have a choice. You can gravitate towards these influences or whatever. And I just want to encourage you, wherever you are, whoever you are, find the light, find the people that shine that light, find the people who are healthy and gravitate towards those people and lean on them, especially when you're young.
Wow. So it's more like when you listen to your inner voice, the things that refuse you in the sense that I no longer feel comfortable in this situation. I no longer embrace the ideas I have. I'm no longer proud of the actions I'm doing. Actually to look like, what other things out there opposite to what I'm doing that I can like more?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Your
Amazing.
actions need to line up with where you want to go.
Incredible. Well, I think we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Pastor Andrew, I'd like you to tell us what the things you have been able to do with your life after this drastic change. You have been able to tell us the actions you've done, but right now, the things that testify to themselves, the things you've given life to. Not just the lives you've impacted, but you yourself, the things you look at and this is a part of me out there walking the world. So thank you so much. We'll be back in a moment and stay with us. Before we go, we're going to have an incredible musician. She is an amazing singer, a mother to a beautiful son, by the way, an incredible husband who is a support system to her. And she's going to bless us. Her name is Benestelle. Amazing. Oh, my God. So thank you so much. I'll see you all in a moment.
What manner of king are you, Jesus, Son of God? The lengths that you go to save the sons of men. None shall be lost, you said, so you paid it all. None shall be lost, you said, so you paid it all for us. For me, you gave yourself for me. For me, the beautiful lover you are. For me, you gave yourself for me. For me, the love you have for me. Oh, Jesus, oh, Jesus, your sacrifice gave me new life. You gave me a crown. Now I reign. I hold the scepter of authority. I have the power and I make decrees. For me, you gave yourself for me. The beautiful lover you are. Lord, you gave yourself for me. The love you have for me, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Sacrifice gave me new life. You gave me a crown. Now I reign. I hold the scepter of authority. I have the power and I make decrees. I decree life, I decree peace, I decree health, I decree power, I decree joy, I decree strength, I decree hope, I own the future. I decree life, I decree peace, I decree health, I decree power, I decree joy, I decree strength, I decree hope, I own the future. I decree life, I decree peace, hey, I decree health, I decree power, I decree joy, I decree strength, yeah, I decree hope, I own the future. hallelujah. We say, Your Majesty, none can compare, and your greatness shown in all the earth. Your Majesty, none can compare, and your greatness shown in all the earth. Oh Lord, you reign, you reign, you reign. We give you glory in all the earth. We give you glory in all the earth. Glory in all the earth. No one else like you. No one else like you. We give you glory in all the earth. We give you glory in all the earth. Glory in all the earth. No one else like you. No one else like you. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. And your greatness. And your greatness. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. And your greatness. And your greatness. Oh Lord, you reign. My Lord, you reign in majesty. Oh, oh Lord, you reign. You reign. We give you glory in all the earth. We give you yes, we give you glory in all the earth. No one else like you. No one else. Nobody else can compare. Glory in all the earth. We give you the glory, Lord. Woo. Glory in all the earth. No one else like you. No one else like you. Oh, Lord, we give you the praise. The earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. The cattle upon 1,000 hills belong to you. And so we joy in our heart, we say, we give you the glory. We give you glory. Say we give you the glory. We give you glory. We say we give you the glory. We give you glory. Say we give you the glory in all the earth. We give you the glory. We give you. Somebody say we give you with a heart. We give you glory. Lord, yes, we give you all of the glory. My God of glory. Hey, glory in all the earth. We give you all of the glory. Say we give you all of the glory. My God of glory. Hey, glory in all the earth. Woo! Glory.
Welcome back, and thank you so much, Benestelle, for the amazing, what incredible voice. I always have this one wish that if I had one thing to wish for, I would be singing, but then again, I won't be talking to you. I'll be like, hello, and all those things. Forget about that fact, but thank you so much for the incredible, amazing voice, and God bless your heart for even doing this and being part of the show. I believe so many people will learn and be touched by your voice. So thank you so much. And once again, guys, welcome back. I'm still here with my guest, Pastor Andrew. Thank you for sticking with us. You still feel good? How's the voice?
I still feel good.
Yeah, you got blessed by the voice?
I did. I feel like I was serenaded. It was great.
Yeah, it was amazing. We closed off with a question. I was asking, after changing your life, the things that you see and look at and they're like, it's because I've been changed, I'm able to sustain A, B, C, D. Yeah.
You know what? After I decided to allow Christ to come into my life and be the conductor, the director of my life, if you would have told me that my life would then center around traveling and speaking across the East Coast to thousands of people in incredible places and incredible opportunities, and that from that moment on, my life would be dedicated to pointing people to hope, to sharing the gospel, I wouldn't have seen it coming.
Wow.
If you would have told me that I would, to this day, have 3 beautiful children who I love and adore, and that I get to be an incredible dad, and I get to be active and involved and lead these 3, I never saw it happening.
Wow.
You know, it wasn't part of the plan. And, I think God took me on a journey. And, today I get to be a part of an incredible team, Hillsong Canada, and I get to oversee basically community outreach and development and helping people and essentially loving people with no strings attached. But again, you take a 16-year-old boy whose life was a mess. None of it was part of the plan.
Right.
And I can only accredit it to God. If you would have told me I would have graduated with a 92% average, all these things, like none of that was part of the plan, right?
So it's like you close one door of the things you're used to, and then when you give your life and God becomes your director, it's like everything opens up, new doors. Amazing. So would you say that when you changed your life, there are particular things, like was traveling ever part of your dream? Like forget about the possibility of it happening, but like traveling to preach the word. Was it like, I wish I could say this or do this or not? No,
like not at all. And be, like I said earlier, there was a point in my life where I didn't see making it past 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
So vision, I'm 32 today. Hopefully nobody feels like I think I'm young. No. But, this part of my life, didn't exist at one point. I didn't have a vision for this part of my life.
Wow. Amazing. I'm like trying to comprehend everything in my mind, how, because most of the times the people who turn to God, you feel like are people who have dreams and goals, who have a vision of what they want to get to. And they realize, I've tried everything to accomplish this, but I can't. But when you have no direction in life to realize that, yes, you're hitting a wall, but there's something past that. Yeah. So you're saying like, I've never had this vision, I've never had this goal, and here I am. It kind of makes me want to tell the young people out there that it's possible to have something brand new start in your life.
Yeah, I heard somebody say it like this. If the vision for your life is something you can do in your own strength, it's too small.
Wow.
And, I think when you add the God component, there really does become that reality where outside of God, this would have never have happened. Opportunities, my life today, like I can't sit back and take credit. I can take credit for, maybe some school stuff, for trying to make some changes. Right. But the trajectory and the course of my life has really things I can't. A little 16-year-old boy who was in a detention center can't take credit for that.
Wow. And you did mention that you are part of a great ministry, a Hillsong Church. How did you find yourself in being a member of that family?
You know what? I was always someone who was a little bit outside the box, I think, when it came to Christianity. Because of my experiences, I have such a deep love for people who are not inside the 4 walls of a church.
Right.
And I have great relationships with people from all different walks and backgrounds of life, friends that I grew up with and did some terrible things with people that I still love deeply to this day.
Right.
So, you know, in certain sects of Christianity, I kind of, you know, dressed a certain way, talked a certain way, you know, looked a certain way that didn't always fit in. And I remember I was at a conference in New York City, and, you know, I was up in front, it was 15,000 young people in like Nassau Coliseum. And a friend of mine introduces me to this pastor backstage. And, you know, I get invited to come out to this church in New York. I didn't even know Hillsong was a church at that point in time. And, you know, I go there, and what I see is you know, sure, there's celebrities and, you know, famous people, but then there's busloads of people coming from Harlem. You know, there's single moms. There's a homeless guy who just came off the street.
Wow.
There's people who are prostitutes who finished their night shift and are just looking for hope. And it was one of the first times where I saw an environment where it wasn't just, hey, I'm trying to reach people that talk like me, act like me, sound like me. It's like, listen, if you're in this city, we want you, and we're coming after you. And I found a place that was really going after any and everybody who was looking for hope. And that was like, yo, this is a place for me.
Wow.
This is a place I belong to. So I got a phone call from London. Hey, look, they're starting Hillsong Canada. Connect. And the rest was history. And 3 years later, you know, it's home. It's home.
Amazing. Yeah, it's incredible because it's really scary when you, like what young people when you go to church. Like for me, I change up my hair every other day. The church where I used to go, they're like, no, people who dress like I wear rings, I do poetry, so that's my excuse for dressing a certain way. But I'm like, I want to feel comfortable and know that my God is looking within, but not the way I'm dressed. So when you talk about all those things, how we people judge each other, how we're able to categorize each other depending on how your outlook is, but not your inner look, kind of makes me feel like so many people would be like incredibly blessed to know that a church like this exists.
Well, you know what? It's not just about local churches. I think the will of God is perfectly displayed in Jesus.
Right.
And when you look at Jesus, I think as people, as Christians, we don't always get it right. We don't always do a great reflection. When you look at Jesus, Jesus sat down with untouchables. Jesus' closest friends were thieves, prostitutes. He sat down with people that many religious leaders wanted nothing to do with.
Absolutely.
And I think when we sit back and we really understand the gospel isn't about, you know, necessarily setting up these walls and boundaries that separate us from people, but it's about going into the highways and byways, and regardless of what you look like, making room at the table for anybody to come and find hope, to find grace, to find love. And that is what church is supposed to be.
Wow, amazing. I feel like we can just close the show right now because if anything, I think that's one of the most comforting things that a person could ever hear, to know that there is a place willing to accept you for who you are and help you even become better, and also be able to release the things that have been holding you hostage and holding you like a chain. You know, and you're able to release that and step into a new beginning that is not just a blessing, but where you're able to turn your life around and be a blessing, which is what you have become. And I am honored and so blessed to have you on this show. And I hope the people who follow us through are able to learn so much as I've learned from your story. So thank you so much.
Rita, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. And we're going to put the information, and if you live in Toronto, go check out the Hillsong Church. I've been going there. It's amazing. If you need a home, it's there. And yeah, God bless you all. See you.